Good evening. In compliance with Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code, I call to order a regular voting meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Austin Independent School District for Thursday, December 16, 2021 at 6 p.m. A quorum of the board, along with a limited number of our staff members, are physically present at AISD Central Office to conduct this meeting. In addition, some staff and guests may be joining us by video. Board meetings are open to the public based on space availability to ensure social distancing and the health and safety of our community and staff. Those in attendance are required to wear a mask and maintain social distancing as ordered by the superintendent and approved by the Board of Trustees. This meeting is streaming live on AISD TV and Apple TV. It's also being broadcast on cable channel 22 through Spectrum, Grande, and on channel 99 through AT&T Uverse. Closed captioning in English is available on these platforms for individuals who are deaf or hard of hearing. And to our audience tuning in remotely and here in person, welcome and thank you for joining us. We will move to the approval of the agenda. Secretary Singh, do you have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Having a motion by Secretary Singh and a second by Trustee Zapata to approve the agenda, all those in favor, please raise your right hand. And the motion passes by all those on the dais. Secretary Singh, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and the pledge to the Texas flag?
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Juro lealtad a la bandera de los Estados Unidos de América y a la república que representa una nación bajo Dios indivisible, con libertad y justicia para todos. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Honor a la bandera de Texas. Juro lealtad a Texas, un estado bajo Dios, único e indivisible.
Thank you. Trustees, we're now going to move to our game changer item, which is our opportunity to recognize and observe important items happening in AISD and our nation. Dr. Elizalde, could you introduce our recognition?
Yes, thank you very much. I will welcome our wonderful Executive Director, Michelle Wallace of our Office of Innovation and Development.
Thank you, Dr. Elizalde, President Rodriguez, trustees. Pleasure to be with you tonight. Go Jags. I'm here tonight to ask for formal recognition for the St. David's Foundation, and just wanted to let you know of some exciting news. Earlier this week, we received notice that St. David's Foundation has awarded 2 additional grants to the Austin Ed Fund in support of Austin ISD students. A grant that totals $753,000 will continue St. David's Foundation's support of Austin ISD's social, emotional wellness and systems of support team. And an award of $173,000 will support the expansion of our home visiting program for 2- and 3-year-old children. The program, Parent Child Plus, is implemented through a peer-to-peer model and supports our commitment to early childhood education. So it's hot off the presses. We're very, very grateful for that support. And I'd like to request formal recognition at this time from trustees. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Lugo, do you have a recognition statement to share with us?
Yes, I do. On behalf of the Board of Austin ISD Board of Trustees, it is my honor and pleasure to recognize St. David's Foundation as a partner for its generous, strategic, and long-standing investment of time and leadership and funds to support Austin ISD students. For many years, St. David's Foundation has supported Austin ISD's mission to prepare every student to thrive. In the past 5 years, the Foundation's support has been a catalyst for Austin ISD's enhanced focus on school-based mental health centers, social emotional wellness, and mental health. This also includes creating safe and welcoming inclusive spaces for all students. And last school year, the foundation supported the launch of the Austin ISD Student Equity Council, who we heard from last spring. That was great. The foundation has also been a long-term partner in the work to establish the neurosequential model in education on 11 Austin ISD campuses. In support of this brain-based science and to increase school readiness, this school year the foundation is supporting a pilot home visiting program for 2- and 3-year-olds. In addition to supporting cutting-edge innovation in Austin ISD, St. David's Foundation has also supported the Austin ISD community in meeting the basic needs of students and families. St. David's Foundation has done this by providing free dental care at Austin ISD campuses for thousands of students each year who would not otherwise receive it. St. David's Foundation has also supported the development of nutritious and delicious kid-friendly cafeteria meals for our students and staff. And my kiddo loves his lunch. Additionally, through its Parks with a Purpose program, the foundation has also beautified our green spaces. When the pandemic began last year, St. David's Foundation was an early and prominent supporter of the Austin ISD Crisis Support Fund, providing desperately needed resources to students and families. The foundation also supports many of our valued partners that provide important services to our students and families that make our community a better place. We appreciate the foundation's generous current investment of over $6.9 million in school-based health initiatives in Austin ISD. We greatly value this deep, committed partnership with the district over many years. It is with great pride that the Board of Trustees of the Austin Independent School District recognizes and thanks St. David's Foundation for their partnership in support of Austin ISD students.
Thank you. Yes, well deserved.
And special thanks to Ed Berger and Kim McPherson, our program officer, and the board of the St. David's Foundation for their support. They regretfully could not join us tonight, but we know that they're with us in spirit and watching, and we really appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. You know, this is the last time we'll be together this year, and that announcement actually really goes well with the idea that I know we've asked all of ourselves and challenged ourselves, how are we taking care of ourselves? I think it's a really important question as we continue to look to the new year and the time off. And as you notice, there's a lot of jingle bells going on, so I need to put my hat on for a second while we do this part. So as I mentioned, this is the last time we'll be together this year. So I don't know if we allow we don't allow cameras in here. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding with you. I'm just kidding with you. This is the last time we'll be together this year. Our next board meeting will be Thursday, January 13th. And I want to remind us all that students begin their winter break on Monday, and our schools and district offices will be closed starting on Wednesday. Staff will return on Tuesday, January 4th, and students return on Wednesday, January 5th. I'd also like to express the board's appreciation for everyone's hard work under continued extraordinary circumstances. In fact, this week we celebrated the 1-year anniversary of vaccines being available throughout our world. And you have gotten students back in class and kept the focus on academic achievement while keeping COVID-19 rates lower than at any other district in Central Texas. And I want to repeat that again. You all have kept the focus on academic achievement while keeping COVID-19 rates lower than at any other district in Central Texas. So we want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We're so grateful for the work that you do. And on behalf of the Board of Trustees, we want to wish our students, staff, and community a restful and joyful holiday. And at this time, yeah, it's worth one more. At this time, we'd like to have trustees provide committee reports. And it says here, and ask them to put hats on, but they've already done that. Trustee Ashe, do you have a report for the Austin Ed Fund and for the board's policy committee?
Yes, and a hat and a shirt that I think we're going to be talking about in a minute. So I'm very excited about that. I'll be reporting on two committees. I'll be reporting on both the Austin Ed Fund as well as the board policy committee. So first, I'll start with the Austin Ed Fund. The Ed Fund board met on December 6th and approved its 2022 budget, officers, and new board members. The Ed Fund board had the opportunity to thank and honor those members rolling off of the board, as well as welcome new officers into their positions. And we will be doing that as well as informing the board of who those people are and thanking them at our next meeting. The Austin Ed Fund established the Jackie Porter Scholarship to support AISD students interested in pursuing early childhood education. The scholarship was announced at an event at Uphouse Early Childhood Development Center on Friday, December 3rd. Special thanks to Trustee Zapata and Trustee Boswell for attending the event, and to all of the community members who have given to support this scholarship, including the Buena Vista and Tapestry Foundations, who have pledged to match community contributions. And on a personal note, I will say that I know that Jackie Porter's legacy will be felt for a very, very long time in this district. And as someone personally who values early childhood education more than you can possibly know, I am eternally grateful for Jackie taking the reins and steering our district to value the importance of early childhood education. Members of the Ed Fund board met on Monday, December 13th for a focus group discussion around growing business partnerships in support of Austin ISD students. The Ed Fund's year-end giving campaign is underway, and thank you to the individuals and businesses who have made a gift. Community members can learn more at www.austinedfund.org, and I invite anyone to please take the time to learn more and more about what the Austin Ed Fund does. And if you should happen to have the ability to do so, give generously, because the work that they do impacts many, many, many of our students and staff. And lastly, thanks to a $100,000 donation to the Ed Fund from Amazon Web Services, Visa gift cards were distributed to Austin ISD Project Help and Refugee Services staff last week to support families needing assistance this holiday season. The Board Policy Committee convened a meeting on Friday, December 10th. Trustees Ashe, Foster, and Boswell were present. Also present from administration were Dr. Gloria Williams, Alejandro Delgado, Dr. Andrew Lyons, Dr. Jacob Reach, Edna Butts, and Board Counsel Christine Badillo. We first discussed the possible revisions to BE Local, which incorporates how agenda items are determined. This was what we discussed during our retreat. It shouldn't be any surprise to anyone, and we'll be following exactly what we discussed. The committee will consider revisions at its January 2022 meeting with the goal of presenting at the board information session on February for final discussion on the dais, as well as a vote at the February board voting meeting. We also received a report from Dr. Gloria Williams, and she updated the committee on the ongoing process of the work group reviewing the Student Code of Conduct. And I would like to extend a special thank you to Dr. Williams for coming to our meetings every month and keeping us informed and coming with documents and showing us exactly what she and her committee members are up to. We were provided with the stakeholder group's calendar dating from early October 2021 all the way through late January 2022. And the Student Support Service team created a presentation to share with the stakeholders regarding the Student Code of Conduct, and has also developed a survey that it will send to the stakeholders. The work group has developed 2 discipline philosophies, and they also formed 3 subgroups. The plain language subgroup, which will focus on identifying areas for improvement to readability and use of plain language in the Student Code of Conduct. The restorative practice subgroup will focus on incorporating restorative practices where appropriate. And the student rights subgroup will work on creating an addendum to the Student Code of Conduct that provides parents with resources and information on their rights. Lastly, the committee began what is going to be a long and intensive study of our transfer policy and just making sure that it is doing what we want it to do and is supporting the work of administration and supporting the vision that we set forth through our strategic framework. Alejandro Delgado and Dr. Andrew Lyons shared data and information on transfers, and something that we learned was that this current school year, 95% of transfer requests were approved in comparison to 70 to 77% in past years. And one of the things we think that did contribute to that was that we did not have as many frozen schools as we have had in years past. So we're going to continue to watch that and see what that looks like moving forward. Mr. Delgado's team has researched other school districts across the country to determine how their policies and practices provide student choice that benefit all, not just some students, and that do not cause inequities. The committee is committed to taking an in-depth and thorough approach to gathering information on possible revisions to the transfer policy and in accordance with the board's strategic framework. Mr. Delgado will present more in-depth data to the policy committee at its February meeting. And our next committee meeting will be on Friday, January 21st at 10 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Ashe. Trustee Boswell, can you provide a report on our recent interview with Raise Your Hand Texas and their new advocacy project?
Yes. Our board and superintendent together, our team of 10, has applied for the new Raise Your Hand Texas Trustee Advocacy Program. Trustee Advocates Program. Raise Your Hand Texas is a nonpartisan group that supports policies that strengthen public schools throughout the state. This new program is an 18-month fellowship that will help participating districts become more effective advocates both in their own communities and through statewide advocacy efforts with statewide policy. If we are chosen, the focus will be on strengthening the advocacy skills of our board, our superintendent, and our community, so we can work together to share our stories and advocate for public education. We had an interview, was it last week, late last week, Dr. Elizalde, I was there, Jacob Reach was there, interviewing as part of our application process. 8 districts will be chosen. There's no cost to participating districts, and we will learn if we've been chosen sometime in January. If we are, we will be inviting you to be part of our work over these next 18 months. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustees, are there any other committee reports to share tonight? Because I can hear trustees' bells going off, so I can't tell whether that means you want to speak or you're agreeing. Trustee Lugo? You're agreeing or you're wanting to share a report?
Both. Yes, I am nodding emphatically. So my update, I wanted to share with the public and the entire board that last Monday, so December 6th, we held an evening listening session for teachers. So Dr. Elizalde and several members of her executive team, including Dr. Mays, Ms. Casas, I believe Ms. Stevens as well, and nearly 100 teachers attended this virtual listening session, along with a handful of trustees, including Board President Rodriguez and the 2 at-large trustees. And we kind of opened up the conversation with 4 guiding questions. We documented the comments, the concerns, the reflections, and ideas that teachers were bringing forth. Now, of course, those are kind of the logistics and the details, but more than anything, what I think happened that night was really an opportunity for us to recognize and acknowledge each other's humanity and the stress that teachers are going through, the passion they have for the career and the vocation that they've chosen. It really is a calling, and also an opportunity for us to collectively think about what are those opportunities to make things better in the midst of an unprecedented time in our history, teaching public education during a pandemic. And so some of the main themes that came out, in fact, were really things that I think are felt and observed regardless of whether there's a pandemic, but I think it's certainly exacerbated by that. So emotional and mental health, what are those supports for students and teachers? How behaviors are showing up, and what are the supports teachers can have to then use a more trauma-informed approach in working with their students. And it was really great to kind of observe and see Dr. Elizalde and her team hear directly from teachers, kind of just some very real feedback about the struggles from this particular school year. And along with that, some of the ideas that they had, something that folks might not think about that would come up in a listening session. One of the teachers said, well, what if we return to a staggered start for pre-K students at the beginning of the year? And she explained why that would be, what the benefits of a staggered pre-K start would be. So I just want to say thank you again to Dr. Elizalde and her team for being vulnerable enough and courageous enough to hear dissenting voices. As a leader, it's always our challenge to not just hear from folks that support us and listen to us, but really to hear from folks that have a dissenting voice. And I also think that, you know, whether we are leaders or we are teachers, students, parents, community members, my hope for the new year is that together we can focus on the problems rather than kind of the personalizing the problems or personifying the problems as people. You know, I think all of us here have a real heart for public education. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here, and we want what's right for kids. And I think that was the biggest takeaway for me, is everybody's passionate, and we all want to do the right thing. So the more that we can learn from each other, the better.
Yeah, can I just jump in with a quick point of order?
Thank you.
Since this was an event that wasn't open to all trustees, I just want to make sure, since we're discussing committee reports, that we get through the committee reports right now first before we share thoughts on individual conversations that we may have had.
Okay, I'm confused by that, but okay.
Thank you, Trustee Liu. Thank you, Trustee Wagner. Trustees, I think unless there's any other committee reports, we're going to move to the next item under the superintendent's report. Dr. Lisa, oh yeah, Trustee Singh.
I just also wanted to thank Dr. Elizalde and her team for being available in that conversation. And I think, thank you, Trustee Wagner, for reminding us. So this was not a full trustee listening session, and because of walking quorum kind of limitations, we could only have 4 trustees on the Zoom at a time. And I know all of us are equally committed to listening to our teachers, and I really appreciate the efforts that are made in that. And just to clarify, in our board officers meeting, we had discussed that Trustee Lugo would actually give an update to make sure that everybody heard what came out of that meeting. So I'm not sure if that was communicated.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're sticking to our posted agenda, which was for committee reports. And so since that wasn't a board committee report, I just want to make sure that we're not straying outside of our posted agenda. That was the reason I called for point of order.
I know.
Thank you. So, trustees, any other committee reports? If not, I'm going to move us to the next item, which is under the superintendent's report. Dr. Elizalde.
Thank you. So I do hope everyone, in case you haven't heard, our LBJ Jaguars are headed to state. And so you will see trustees are all wearing purple. And if you've panned out to our staff, everyone's in purple, because here we go. That's why so many people are wearing purple today. I know I saw people just out in the city wearing purple today. I'm not going to say which city employees I saw hanging out of their vehicles. No mayor, nor should a city manager be upset about that. They were all in support of LBJ. This is the first Austin ISD football program to reach the state football championship since 1973. I was 9. So, and I'm just saying. And so and for LBJ, this is the first time in the school's history. The energy has truly been palpable in this building and throughout the district all day, which started with the send-off rally at LBJ, and I know several trustees were able to attend along with Dr. Mays. Words cannot express how proud we are of these amazing players and coaches. These players have not only been tested in their physical training, but they are also accomplished scholars. You might not know, but they have 96 college credits among them. Please, yes, please support our LBJ Jaguars by tuning in at 11 a.m. tomorrow on Bally Sports Southwest, or get your tickets now via SeatGeek and use the Jaguar discount code. You'll get $5 off if you use 4, the number 4, AD as in dog, IS. Thank you again for that. And so before I move on to my next recognition, I hope that we have queued up, there's a short little video that I'd like to share to give you a greater sense of what this opportunity means to our Jags.
Last year was a big knockdown for me and my boys.
It was painful, it was hurtful. One thing we took from that is like, we do not want to experience that ever again.
I felt like we had a lot more that we could have done and improved on during that game, but last year's last year and it's only up from there. Coach went to the huddle. Coach called me for the play, and I knew what time it was. Our coach was just waiting for the right time, and that was the right time. My coaches and teammates have been building me up for this moment. Shoot, they really the reason why it happened. They all set me up to make the play, so it's all them.
I balance academics and athletics just by doing what I got to do every day and making sure I'm doing the right thing. It was very difficult, but I got into the life of it, and I want to be like a game designer, you know, at a software and all that.
My mom is real big on me on doing my work and stuff like that, but then sometimes I can flag and she keep me up, and she really makes sure I do my work. I really just want to get into something like law, something like that. Since I was little, everybody told me I like to argue, so I can probably be a lawyer.
We fought through adversity week in and week out, and this is just a special team. I love my brothers. We have a certain type of brotherhood that just keeps us close and keeps us together. We just keep winning. This is going to be the first time in like 50 years that we won a state championship. And LBJ, ever since it's been founded, we never won. So this is going to be very special for everybody.
And so now we back, and we've obviously been past the 5th round, so now we're ready to go to state and really take it all the way for the city.
It's going to be a good game for us, an exciting game for LISD.
So I can't tell you all, and I know there are a couple of pictures floating around of me up in a little press box area last Saturday with 14 seconds on the clock. And I'm like, Noah's got to come down with it. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. But boy, aren't these gentlemen and their coach, Coach Fenner, actually a model for us about team. And so I think they're our inspiration. I'm certainly going to be there. I'm hoping this meeting doesn't last too long because I'd like to get on the road this evening. I know we have trustees that were able to move some things around. I know we have staff that are attending. I know we have several buses that are going. We are very excited. This is their moment. They have earned it. And we're just so blessed that we get to ride their coattails and get to call Austin ISD where we get to serve. So one more round of applause for our LBJ Jaguars. And so this year we have decided to revamp the RAVE program to recognize outstanding employees, as I think you all have heard about. One of the changes was the introduction of what are called Golden Raves, which has allowed me to personally recognize employees who have gone above and beyond in their work. And I've done some of those here at our board meetings. This school year alone, Austin ISD has awarded 1,218 raves through digital submissions. Each month, we randomly select 4 winners from digital raves, and these winners are mailed a special rave gift card made possible by the generous community supporters of Austin Ed Fund, which we heard from our Executive Director, Michelle Wallace, earlier today. But a recent winner told us this, and I thought I would share this quote so that all of you know the impact that your work, your volunteer work, has on our community. And this teacher said, "This is a wonderful surprise. Thank you for including me and for having the RAVE program. I love hearing the positive feedback from parents and colleagues. As a newer teacher, this is my second full year. It's fantastic to know that my efforts are truly making a difference to my students. Thank you all of you, and all of the community of supporters that we have for investing in the recognition of our outstanding teachers and staff. The RAVE program has been a great success, and it is truly one of my favorite times of the month when I get to take the time to tell the stories of all the beautiful work that's happening throughout our district." And so with that, I'd like to give my winter break message. As we head into winter break, many of us will be celebrating holidays that focus on hope. And so hope is the strand I'd like to take with us. I want to share a message of hope with our staff, our students, our families, our communities, and of course, our devoted trustees. I hope that our staff and my team know what an extraordinary job they are doing. We are in a cultural moment of anxiety and struggle. And yet I see them every day teaching our kiddos with new tools and methods that will improve academic outcomes, reaching their social and emotional needs. And I hope they know how much I appreciate them. I hope our students know the joy it gives me when I get to visit them in classrooms. If children are our future, then let me tell you, we have brighter days ahead. Every time I visit a classroom, I see eyes lighting up with excitement about learning. I hope our families know that I feel their support. Even when they disagree, they support our school district. I appreciate our families who have worked with us by sending their children to school with masks on and helping us to keep students and staff safe. And last, to my bosses, I hope you all know how much I appreciate you. Serving as a trustee might be your only experience with a school board, but in my career, I've worked with many. I hope you know how special you are and how grateful I am for your focus on academic outcomes and for our mission to prepare every student with the knowledge and skills they need to thrive in college, career, and life. So to everyone here and everyone watching at home, let's rest up on the break and come back energized. I said recently that we have had some hard days, but it's a great life because this is the life we get to do. We get to serve our students. We get to serve our community. The best work there is here in Austin ISD, and it's in educating our children. Happy holidays, a happy new year, feliz Navidad y próspero año nuevo.
Thank you, Dr. Elizalde. Trustees, are there any questions? Trustee Anderson from the Jaguar land.
I would just like to take a point of personal privilege to recognize two students from Northeast Early College High School. Last week, a few students from the Health Occupations Student Association completed online testing to qualify for upcoming area and state competitions. Senior Brenda Espinoza ranked first in all of Area 1 in the nursing assistant category and will advance to the area competition. There she will compete in skills portion of the nursing assistant category to attempt to qualify for state. Junior Celeste Pacina ranked fourth in all of Area 1 in the Human Growth and Development category. She is the first alternate to represent Area 1 at the state competition. And I would just like to say I am so proud of y'all. And Jaguars, I'll be there tomorrow. I'm gonna have my purple on. Y'all gonna see me. You gonna see me. But congratulations to all of y'all, and I'm so proud to represent y'all. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Anderson. Any other questions, trustees? Sorry, I moved my head there. Dr. Elizalde?
So I think we have a guest with us this evening. We are very fortunate to be able to have Dr. Desmar Walks give us an update with regard to our current pandemic situation in Austin Public Health. So I'm going to turn it over to our staff to see if we can get Dr. Walks on.
Hello.
There we go. We can hear you now, Dr. Walks. Thank you for taking time to join us this evening.
Hi. I'm here tonight, and I've got the great pleasure of I'm smiling from ear to ear because I was watching you talk about the Jaguars, and I'm excited for them and for everyone that's getting ready to leave for the holidays. And I'm hoping that we can all really look at this time and really look at how much we've done as a community, and particularly this Austin ISD community has done so much for Austin Travis County and in helping to keep our community healthy and safe and keep our kids in school. And that's been a real joy to be a part of the team that's doing that. So thank you for all that you're doing here on this board, and for all of the staff and the students who've worked to keep the school safe and healthy, and made it possible for the football team to get to state too by staying healthy. So that was really good news. I have some slides that I'd like to share, and I need to share my screen. So just 1 second, I'll do that. Can you see my screen? Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Good. So we are currently seeing an increase in the numbers of cases since Thanksgiving. Our community transmission rate before Thanksgiving was 44. It's gone up to 79, 80 range in the last few weeks. And we're seeing a steady plateau in cases with a 7-day moving average, and the average of about 13. That's increased to 18 recently. So we're anticipating with holiday gatherings indoors that we're getting some more transmission of cases in our community. And that's been something that our UT modelers have been talking to us about. So we recently made some adjustments in our recommendations to follow the community transmission rate so that the spike in this time period of holiday season could be averted, and have asked people to start to wear masks in indoor public spaces. And this is just a slide that I think everybody's seen before that defines what our 7-day moving average of community transmission is, defined by the number of cases per 100,000. And you'll see that high is greater than 100 and substantial is 50 to 99 and so on. And our risk-based guidance has been adjusted to reflect that we're now taking a look at community transmission as well as the 7-day moving average of hospitalizations, and our masking, particularly for high-risk individuals, those who are unvaccinated or have are people that have medical conditions that put them at higher risk for disease, and those who are needing a booster shot because it's been 6 months since their last vaccination, and the guidance is as shown here. We look at community spread, healthcare capacity, vaccination rates, and we're doing things to increase detection of the illness in our community by recommending that people start testing if they have symptoms. And most recently, the CDC has advised that people test prior to going off to visit friends and family for the holidays so that they don't go to those gatherings and spread any illness that they may have. And so home testing has been advised. And self-testing is something that's quite easy to do. And here there's a picture of a lady who's doing that. And it's recommended for those who are traveling, whether or not they are vaccinated. So unvaccinated and vaccinated individuals are being advised to test. People with or without symptoms, because we can have asymptomatic infections. And then follow the guidance for staying home if you're sick, if you have a positive test. In our hospitals, we're seeing an increase in cases slowly over the last few weeks, and we're still seeing pediatric admissions. We are seeing increases in admissions for respiratory illness for other things other than COVID as well. So it's important that we continue to stay home if we're sick for other causes as well, so that we can help to not spread illness in our community. And this graph shows that over the last few weeks, we've been seeing those increases. And then in our schools at this point, we've seen a slow decline over time since the beginning of school. But overall, last year when we had consistent masking in schools for the entire school year and the option of virtual learning, we had a total of 3,933 cases. And year to date, since August 16th, when school reopened, we've had 5,979 cases. So you can see that masking, social distancing, hand washing, et cetera, has a great impact on reducing spread. I show this slide to show how masks do help decrease the spread of aerosolized droplets that are infected with viral particles. And this is a slide that was produced and displayed in the New York Times. And it's if you go to the site, you can actually see a 3D simulation of the spread of these viral particles in a room. And it just reinforces that social distancing and masking are things that are helpful in preventing spread of disease. And some particles, depending on the forcefulness of the cough or the sneeze, can spread in much farther than 6 feet and can linger in the air. We know that vaccines are things that can prevent this illness, and we've had good success in our county. We've had up to 28% of the children in the 5 to 11 age group who've been vaccinated thus far, which is a great testament to the work that's been done by our county partners in vaccinating and APH and all of the ISDs who've participated in the efforts to get our children vaccinated, not only in the 5 to 11 age group, but in all age groups. So we need to continue those efforts and help us, our children and those in our community generally stay healthy for this holiday season. Omicron is on everybody's mind, and we recently had a preliminary report of its existence here in our county. When we started hearing about this is a slide from just a few weeks ago. we could quantify it quite easily. And this slide shows what we had to deal with just as of Monday. And you can see that it's spread very quickly. However, we as a community know how to mitigate and stop the spread of this disease. Austin ISD has done a tremendous job in encouraging masking, providing virtual options for their students, supporting their teachers, and working with community partners to get testing done and vaccinations done. And I thank you for your efforts. And I leave you with the thought of get vaccinated, get booster shots, mask up, wash up, and test before traveling. And somebody just gave me this. I don't have a hat, but happy holidays.
That's funny.
Thank you, Dr. Walks. Thank you for that great presentation. Trustees, are there any questions for Dr. Walks?
Oops.
No comments about the beard? Trustee Singh has a question.
Thank you so much for your presentation. So helpful that we can have access to you. It's just wonderful. I had a question. Do you have any idea when boosters will be available for the younger kids? Is that in the works?
We don't know yet. We did hear in a call a couple of days ago that they're anticipating that the FDA will hear an application for the under 5 age group, which is amazing. So we're really hoping that that moves through after the holiday.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, trustees. Any other questions? Trustee Boswell.
Dr. Wux, thank you so much. I appreciate you being here. I have 2 questions. One, the last time you were with us, we had a lot of pressure on our hospital systems, and that was before vaccines for children, before vaccines were so widespread. What are you seeing in hospitals now in this moment, and kind of what kind of control do we have over what happens?
We are seeing that hospitals are extremely busy right now. It's the end of the year. We're seeing a lot of respiratory illness that we see in the winter months. We're seeing some increases in flu cases, and just regular routine medical care is also something that's been increasing the numbers and decreasing the capacities in our local systems. And on top of that, we have staffing issues. So this community's working together to decrease the number of people that get COVID or get the flu is going to go a long way to preserving the ability for somebody that needs healthcare to have a spot. I'm not saying they don't have a spot, but the concern with Omicron is that because it spread so rapidly that and because of the early reports that it's a mild illness, that people will not take it, that it's causing mild illness, that people may not take it as seriously as they should. And the fact that it spread so rapidly means that it could also affect those people that are at higher risk for severe disease more rapidly as well. And a sudden surge in the numbers of cases of people that require hospitalization on top of what we normally see at this time of year when the hospitals are already full, that's the issue. And that's why we're asking the public to go get their booster shots, get tested before they go visit other folks for the holidays, and wear a mask when you're out there shopping and getting ready for dinner parties and all the, wrapping gifts and all the other things that we do at this time of year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Boswell. Any other questions, trustees? Trustee Zapata.
Thank you for all the hard work of all the entire team that you work with to provide the vaccines. I did receive a text that at our Southeast Library, we're offering a $100 gift card. So that's a good holiday gift to give to yourself and to be healthy and to enjoy the holidays. Thank you.
Thank you.
Trustees, any other questions? Dr. Rux, thank you so much for your leadership and for your team's hard work throughout the pandemic. As I mentioned earlier, this week is the one-year anniversary of vaccines available, and
Yes.
you all's hard work is to be commended and recognized throughout the community.
And thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to everyone tonight. Happy holidays.
Thank you. Same to you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Our next item is part of our commitment to discuss student outcomes and student achievement. And tonight, we're building on the conversation we started last week on STAR reading data by tonight's discussions, the same student, regarding the same student group, but now focused on STAR math. Dr. Elizalde?
Thank you, President Rodriguez. I'd like to preface this by reminding everyone that these were discussed goals that we're using to model our student outcome goal performance discussion with the board. However, later this evening, you may be taking action on an actual scorecard. So I don't want to confuse what we're calling right now. I don't want to confuse that with what we actually have up for you to consider a vote on. But we want to continue staying with the pattern we had established. So, of course, this particular goal is focused on the economically disadvantaged students and the achievement on state assessments in Texas. Right now, that would be called STAR, in all grades, all subjects at the meets grade level. However, we want to spend time at this point focusing on mathematics, and our student goal progress measure would be the beginning point of where we find our students right now on what is called MAP assessments or measures of academic progress. So what you see in front of you is the same representation as we've had before, as we've been trained on maintaining consistency in data presentation. We've compared the district to the state. You see the state identified for the 18-19 school year. And a reminder that in 1920 there was no state assessment given, and then on 2021 school year. So you see that the state did have a 10-point drop from 39% to 29%. Again, this is a representation of data of economically disadvantaged students in mathematics. The chart itself shows the STAR data, and then at the district level, we went from 36% to 21%. So in 18-19, the gap for economically disadvantaged math on the state assessment between Austin Independent School District, between us and the state, was 3 points. And currently, if we just look at this sampling, and I say sampling because we had a difference in the percentage of students that were assessed in the 2021 school year, significantly different than in the previous years. So we want to take that into account to some extent. But what we have to recognize is that even though the state had a drop, our data reveals that for that particular group of students, we had a larger drop, and that gap is now 8 points. So certainly something that we are monitoring, to say the least. And so that's what you see in the table itself went from 36% with no data in 1920 to 21% for the 2021 school year. So how do we actually monitor where our students are currently? Utilizing our MAP or measures of academic progress, what we see is at the beginning of the year, we have 13% of the students in that growth progress measure that are what we would consider the equivalent of on grade level at this time of year. So each time that we do these assessments, which will be 3 times, we'll do a beginning of year, which is really baseline data for the very first year that we're doing the continuum of all grades that are available to us at this point. Then we'll have mid-year, which will be given in January. So that'll be the first measure that we'll be able to bring you that actually begins to now show how the actual classroom instruction and the supports at each of the schools are actually beginning to demonstrate where are we seeing some really big gains, where are some areas that we need to identify what types of supports are needed. Then we've disaggregated the data as we've committed to below that in another table to do the comparison of all of our groups identified, students that identify as African American, Hispanic or Latino, white, emergent bilingual, and special education. And so, of course, we'll be bringing and adding to that table as each administration of the assessment is provided to students. But we can continue to see the same kinds of very concerning patterns that we saw the last time we met and we discussed reading. Only this time you can see some even larger gaps when we look at mathematics, which has been a national trend. And I just want to reiterate some of those trends that we have researched, of course, rest with the fact that mathematics is also a continual skills assessment curriculum. So you sometimes need this skill in order to do X skill, whereas reading is the same level of skill being given with a more complex text. So comprehension is comprehension, but the complexity of that comprehension changes from grade level to grade level. The difficulty of the text, TEXT, is different from grade level to grade level. Mathematics is an actual, to some extent, stair-stepped curriculum. You learn certain skills before you move to more advanced skills. So you can see that when students don't have certain skills, it is going to definitely create a requirement of us to teach those skills that were missed so that they can accelerate their learning. And we want to spend just a couple of minutes actually describing some of what you then see on page 3, which are, so does the reality match the vision? Do we know that we want these outcomes? Are we headed in that path? What I do want to note is if you see, where is our overall progress? We have identified ourselves as below target. And we had a conversation of, is it really below target because it's beginning of year? Are we don't know. We really wanted to be more conservative and just state right now, we don't think we're on target. We think we're going to get on target, and we think we'll be able to give you some evidence of that in January when we have the second and the mid-year map data available. So we're not quite ready, we're not going to abandon the strategies or things that we have in place, but we think it's important to recognize where we are. Our board goals monitoring report, page 3, kind of highlights that alignment of instruction and alignment of curriculum, along with the supports and the professional learning. And I certainly don't want to read these information to you. What I would like to do is actually do a little quick demo, if you all would be game to work with me and Trustee Zapata. I'm going to see if one of your colleagues next to you will work with you, because this will probably be a little bit challenging with visual impairment. So we're going to do a little bit of a quick math lesson. Maybe I could turn it over to Trustee Singh, one of our former teachers who's on the board, if she wants to do this lesson.
Now is the time for a trustee to say that there's a point of order, since this is not on the agenda. There was no math questions I was told that we were going to have for the agenda here.
Council, it is connected to our growth progress measures. So what I'd like us to do is actually, if you look up at a slide that Mr. Delgado is walking us through, there were some questions thank you so much, Trustee Singh and some other trustees who were like, well, what do we mean when we talk about curriculum alignment? What does a comprehensive and viable curriculum look like? And what types of professional development skills are we working with our teachers to develop? So if for just a minute you think about mathematics,
Sometimes I don't think that's everybody's favorite subject. And so what I want to remind us is sometimes we were given numbers and we were just told to do something when we saw something without understanding the conceptual development. So I'm going to read to you what this word problem actually says, because this is what our kids actually get, whether you're in favor of STAR or not. These are the same types of situations you find in ACTs or SATs or PSATs or a TSIA, the college readiness assessment. So let's separate out, whether it's a good state assessment or not. Let's just talk about being able to measure what we know our students need to know and be able to do. So two friends each have a similar box of cookies. They've got the same box of cookies. That's an important starting point. They don't have different boxes of cookies. It's the same. But one has 3/8 of a box and one had 3/4 of a box. Who had more cookies? So if you see that we've already begun to illustrate this challenge here of 3/8 compared to 3/4, below it what you'll see is what I call the algorithm or the step of what you do. This is sometimes what we typically would find. It's similar to the way many of us were taught. As a matter of fact, this would have been called the butterfly method. And kids would be like, well, I'm going to cross multiply. But if we ask, why are you doing that? In what instance are you doing that? And if we were asking for a concrete representation, then we get challenged, because what we're doing is we're teaching memorization, not conceptualization. And in order for us to have this acceleration of improvement academically, these are the types of things that we're talking about. So what you have in front of you, I'd like you to ignore the card. What you have in front of you, these are called Cuisinart rods. You have two that are identical, that are one piece. They're kind of a brownish color. So I want you to pretend each of these represents the box of cookies. So we have a whole, because anytime we talk about fractions are parts of a whole. So this would be if the box was full. So we're going to put the full box down in front of us. Now, what I want you to do, if you haven't already done, is you have another set of Cuisinart rods that are bright red. There are 4 of them that are similar, that are identical in size. I want you to line up the 4 underneath the 1 brown hole. And then I see Trustee Lugo already advanced over there. We're going to take the little white ones. Many of you have already done this. Now, there are lots of different ways to do this. Once students get conceptual understanding, they can actually mix, because you can make a whole from the different colors. You could have 2 of the red ones could be placed with 4 of the single white ones. But the real important things here to recognize is, if you go back to the challenge that we have in our word problem, one says 3/8. So if you count your white singles, how many do we actually have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we've taken the whole and we've divided it into 8, representing, because we're going to know that student has 3/8. The other one is 3/4. Now, what you're seeing on the screen that Mr. Delgado has put up, these are now virtual Cuisinart rods. Students can utilize this software, and this is available for all of our students. I believe it's called Braining Camp. And this is available, all of our students have this. Now, what's really important is you want to take our students from concrete, which is a box of cookies, if we actually had the box out here, to semi-concrete, which is what you have in front of you here in the Cuisinart rods, 3-dimensional. As you lose dimensions, you move more towards abstract. Mathematics is best taught from the conceptual foundation of concrete, semi-concrete, semi-abstract to abstract. So now that you should have in front of you the same alignment as you see up on the screen, now we can actually have a conversation about, so one had 3/8 of a box. So you would take you're 3 out of your 8, and that's what one student has. The other student had 3 out of 4. Now the question becomes, who has more cookies? You can compare, and just using your eye, you would be able to know which student actually had more. So you want to walk through that process before you actually go to the algorithm or the abstract portion. So we started with a full box of cookies. Then we went to one student had 3/4 of the box and the other one had 3/8. Conceptually, our students can now see which student had more. If we just go straight to the algorithm that's on your card or the butterfly, what we found is some students go, why do you think some students might think 3/8 is the correct answer when they just look at the numbers? And that would be because 8 is bigger than 4. So if we don't give conceptual understanding, what happens is memorization doesn't become a part of the conceptual. Remember I talked about math being stair-stepped. If I don't understand the conceptualization of fractions, then when I get to proportions and ratios or percentages, I don't have a conceptual understanding. So we want, now teachers can do all of this, but they also don't have time to be doing all of this. So part of, and I had 2 rock stars that prepared this for me, by the way, in our office. I don't want it to appear like I did this all by myself. So Rebecca Brown and Danielle Oler, I have to give them a shout out in our curriculum office. Yay, Rebecca and Danielle, for putting this together for us. But I wanted you to have an opportunity to really see what is professional learning kind of grounded in, and what does this look like, and why is this different? And it's different because we want to make sure that we're doing real, deep instructional practices so that our students then have that anchor and can be accelerated. So instead of using I'm going to call in some ways a trick to do the mathematics, we want them to make sure that they understand the concept behind it and can explain it, and then they can go to using some algorithms. So just wanted you to have an actual picture and an experience with that before I go into getting questions from you all.
Dr. Elizalde, before we put all of our things up, I was wondering, because I'm so excited you brought this out. First of all, I wish everybody could have seen what each individual trustee did with all of these when we first got them. My personal favorite being Trustee Rodriguez stacking his. But I was wondering, because we use this term a lot, and we use it a lot when we're talking about our students and how to challenge them where they are. And I apologize for putting you on the spot, and so feel free to tell me no. And in fact, you highly encourage you to tell me no if you don't want to do it. But is there a way you might be able to describe differentiation as it might apply to this lesson so that people can understand what that means?
Yeah, excellent point. So the first thing about differentiation is that I wouldn't have given any instructions. I would have actually just allowed students, you set the parameters and you let the students discover what are they going to do with this problem. And then, because actually that's a great way of what we would call formative assessment. I would walk around and I would already, okay, these students already got this. So that allows me to then go to the next skill in our scope and sequence. If students are struggling, are they struggling over the same portion? Then I can do a small group reteach. And if I have 1 or 2 students that are struggling, I can do individual reteaches so that I can get them caught up. And the reason, that's why conceptualization is so important in our instructional delivery, because it is the quickest way. Instead of, what do I know because a student circles or fills in A, B, C, or D? What do I know about their thinking? I know absolutely nothing. They could have guessed the right answer. They could have guessed the wrong answer. They could know far more. Just because a student gets something wrong in a type of binary system of either you got it right or you didn't doesn't provide the intervention. So in order for us to be able to get teachers to have this information, we want to prepare these lessons for them. They are not required. They are not required. But we also know teachers don't have time to go, well, let me go get this and let me go get this. So we have purchased these, all of these materials are available at all of our campuses. Whether we're actually getting them all the way down to the campuses is certainly something that we're recognizing, which is why I thought this aligned great with our strategic implementation as you all visit with staff and community and parents. Like, these are the types of things we would want to see in our classrooms, and this is what our teachers need from us so that they don't have to go and, how do I go get the Cuisinart? What's the lesson that, how do I do this with this particular lesson? We want, because the real magic is in how the teacher delivers it with their kids. To the example you were giving, what does differentiation look like? And what is the personality of the teacher? And what stories and what concrete examples are given? We want the teacher to be able to put energy into that instead of trying to create this whole lesson.
And Trustee Rodriguez, I will be either giving you Lincoln Logs or Legos for Christmas, based on that.
Well, in the spirit of differentiation, I have to just apologize to Dr. Lizalde because I was playing with the white ones and they fell underneath your area. So I was conceptualizing the.
I see it down here.
You see it? Sorry, I just wanted to make sure that you knew it was there. Trustees, now is the time for us to ask questions on the current vision. And our goal tonight is monitoring and ensuring that our reality matches the vision presented. So when asking questions, we should try to focus on the data presented, asking questions about who, what, why, and how, not who got the answer right. And so I'm going to open it up to any questions. Thank you, Dr. Sada. I got back my Trustee Ash.
So Dr. Lizalde, you did in your presentation did discuss with us that we're kind of on the cusp of the next round of data. I was and as a parent, and I do currently have a student studying for a math course final tomorrow. Olivia, keep it up, keep studying. I guess my question would be, because I have, as a parent, received 9-week grades and have seen those. Are those providing any indicators or anything that maybe would provide insight into us as we're coming into them middle of the year assessments?
So the goal absolutely is for the alignment to be that those are also indicators of where a student is. Part of that will be a reflection for us as we then begin, because we will correlate 3 things. We will correlate grades that students have with MAP assessment and short cycle assessments that we give at the end of 9 weeks that take state assessments. So that's going to give us some indication of like, oh, at this particular school, in this particular classroom, these are very aligned. In another classroom, they may not be aligned. That might help us. Sometimes we find out, guess what? There was a substitute in that classroom, or someone was on leave for a period of time. We didn't have a certified sub in the classroom. So there are lots of factors. We don't want to jump to conclusions. We want to use the data as we've been trained to intervene. What kind of support is needed? But we can't fix what we don't know how the students are doing. Then we can't come in to say, here's how we're going to intervene in this process. So yes, there should be some indication. I think we're going to see improvement over time as we work to get to a real viable, comprehensive, and cohesive curriculum in our core content area that still can be differentiated for students that need challenging, more challenging and more rigorous work.
Thank you for that. And then another question that I'm often asked, and I'm not sure that there's a short answer for this. as I know, as I'm looking at all of the professional learning and all of the other alignments of instruction and things that we're doing in that area, particularly as it pertains to really working in our early grades, so that, especially with math, because it does build upon itself. What are the strategies that are used for students who are in secondary already and are showing that they're having some challenges in math particularly?
So I'll start off and see if either Ms. Casas or Dr. Van Anderson want to add. The first part of what we want to do is ensure that we're giving teachers an alignment of how the standards, the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills, are aligned from grade level to grade level or course to course. So, for instance, if we have students that are in 8th grade and they're struggling, the first thing you want to do is look at what is the corresponding 7th grade standard to see, because what we don't want is we don't want a student who's struggling at 8th grade for us to not properly support the teacher in diagnosing, and the next thing you know is we've retrieved ourselves all the way to, let's say, an activity that is more 2nd or 3rd grade level. And the only way you know how far down you need to go to get a student caught back up is you start grade level first. So if I'm struggling at 8th grade, for instance, I'll give you an example. In 7th grade, it might say something about that the student should use concrete objects in order to do whatever standard we're studying. But at 8th grade, it might be that you have to do that without concrete models. So you go back and say, well, let me pull out some concrete models to find out, can the student do it with concrete models? Then all I need to do is work on transitioning from concrete to the semi-abstract. If the student is struggling even with concrete models, then I go look at what the 6th grade standard is. So the idea is, if I have some sample lessons designed for all those grade levels, then I, as a teacher, I don't have to go create something for my 8th grader. I can go look and see, well, what's 7th grade lesson that ties to that? Now I don't have to go create that. I can focus on getting the student lifted up to the proper area. That's what we mean by a comprehensive curriculum, that I can go and I'm an 8th grade teacher, but I should be able to access other grade levels. Conversely, if a student's ready for Algebra 1, I can go access Algebra 1 curriculum. So the idea is making progress personalized for each and every student.
And how does that, so I know that the goal, of course, would be to have an 8th grade student in grade level 8th grade math. If a student is in 8th grade math and a teacher discerns that they really may not have grasped a 6th grade concept, kind of what you were referring to, what does that mean for a student? So are they tested on 6th grade skills, or are they still tested on 8th grade skills? And how does that impact what we see as trustees?
Part of the success of MAP is to make sure that we can differentiate between the progress that a student is having, regardless of whether I'm on 6th grade and I'm in an 8th grade classroom. Am I making progress? Versus how am I doing in staying on grade level with that particular grade level? Because you really need to run a both and. We have to ensure, because at the end of the day, the student has to be able to be successful on that particular grade level. And even if for some reason they're not, if we can demonstrate that they're making growth, it helps the student recognize, you know what, in one more year, I made this much growth. If we get a 1.5 year growth for a student, both the teacher and the student can feel success. But prior to this year, we hadn't created these individualized progress measures. So students would feel like, I didn't meet the standard, therefore I wasn't successful. Or a teacher is saying, I didn't get all my kids to meet this at the meets level. Does that mean I wasn't successful? By creating these progress measures, we really begin to move everyone, even students that are at the top. Setting students that are at the top, what's my progress measure? So that all students are striving. If I'm at the meets level, can I get to the mastery level? And at the same time, allowing MAP, which again is also a nationally normed, to correspond to the fact that we also know we have state standards. So the both and, I think, really works to address that challenge of, I may be struggling in this one area or a couple of areas, but it's about growth, not about absolute performance.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Eshi. Trustee Anderson?
So under professional learning, the second bullet, what is grade bands and how would this professional learning help teachers support students of color in kinder? It says we offer daily math fluency.
Okay, so great. I have my backup team here because we're getting down to that technical implementation at the campus level, which is probably the most important part. We do put math fluency by like what's most common between K2, 3, 5, so that there's a continuum that allows students. It's very similar to when you go to your doctor and your child is a certain age and the doctor says they're within this range. So first of all, that's what we mean by ranges. Students can flow between those, and that doesn't immediately mean that there's a problem. It means we just have to make sure that they're moving and progressing. But I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Bowen Anderson or Chief Casas.
I think you covered it there. I think one of the things that you probably discovered as you played with the manipulatives was that they were fun, right? And so particularly with math, we want to be really cognizant of that social and emotional connection to we're all mathematicians and we can all understand this information. And so building fluency is that connection to the mathematical concept. So this training for K through 2, they're built together so that the teachers can experience how those skills build upon each other and how you might need to go a little bit higher, a little bit lower in your in the conceptual understanding in order to build on that over time. So they're lumped together that way, but then also that daily fluency training is how do we provide exposure to those mathematical concepts every day for students, and that's good for all of our students. It is allowing them to play with manipulatives. It's allowing them to explore concepts in ways that are not just the arithmetic, kind of like you saw today. So every multiple way that we can have students explore what it means to develop fraction sense, like you did today, that's going to be so powerful for them over time.
And I would say with regard to African American students or Latino students, the manipulatives provide something beyond just a two-dimensional abstract number and allows us to then have, for instance, when in this particular example I gave something like the box of cookies, but you can allow students to create their own story. And so the more it's a story about me, I create a word problem and then I solve the word problem, are some of the research studies that indicate how do I make this meaningful to students? So whether we're talking about African American students or you model and then you allow students to create their own, and they can even become part of the story. It may seem like something small, but those are the differences in the curriculum so that we can ensure that all students feel like this is for them, not something to them. And the bands, we tend to not want to do, like, we don't want to do a training with K to 5 because the differences between kinder all the way to 5th grade in order to address questions, concerns, how to implement it at a classroom level to ensure all students, regardless of their race or ethnicity, are able to engage and interact with this, makes it easier for teachers to have that, what we'll call a professional learning conversation, because it's within the grade levels that they serve more closely.
And so I'm gonna circle back around. So how does this professional learning help a teacher support a student that is in high school who may have, I'm gonna say, slipped through the cracks, and math may not be a strong area? So how does the training help that student?
I love that question, because what it is saying is that when our teachers have the conceptual understanding that we're developing here today, when they understand that at a deep level, then when we do recognize that there are some gaps in conceptual understanding, that we have the tools to meet them where they are. So oftentimes we talk about it's so important for students to see grade level content. When we don't show it, that's another kind of inequity, that you are unable to reach this content. That is a devastating social and emotional message to receive as a child. But if they can see, here's where we're going, and I have, as the teacher, been to professional learning that's allowed me to deconstruct where your starting point is and where we're going to build to get to that, to that pinnacle of learning, then I'm going to feel more confident that that is still possible for me. And we have to show our teachers, and we have to engage as professionals in dialogue with one another and with students to talk through, what does that look like? And what things might we need to adjust and change as professionals to be able to reach our students? So what you're talking about is getting at the core of what a good PLC does. A professional learning community comes together and says, okay, maybe we need to look back at 4th grade, and we might teach 8th grade or 9th grade, and keep going back and have the skill set to know how to do that. And one of the tools that I just was playing around with this morning is called Goal Book. And while that was established really for universal design for learning, for special education students, what I love about it is it's good for teachers to have that conversation where they can see the vertical alignment of skills from K all the way to 12. So that they don't have to do the heavy lifting of trying to backwards map through all the text, but they can say, this is the concept we're working on. It was really tough for 75% of my class. So I'm going to back out what is the vertical alignment for that particular concept, and it's mapped out. And they can go back and look and see, are we successful here? And when we find out that we are, through conversations, through manipulatives, through all different kinds of strategies, because I have those in my toolbox now, then I'm going to be able to move them up that progression more easily.
And I'll add just that last part, that as we connect the actual concrete, like there was a time when we used to think like, oh, if I'm using models or like Cuisinart rods that we had in front of us, or base 10s, that using manipulatives was somehow not as rigorous. And what we actually now know today is the reverse is true. If you don't know how to use them, you don't actually have conceptual understanding. So like the virtual, some of the kids, because they spend so much time, for instance, on something like video games, when you give them the opportunity to manipulate these virtual Cuisinart rods, they really then begin to, because they can connect to that could be part of their modality of learning. So we have to learn that whenever there is a gap of some sort, it's about the way in which we provided that instruction, and we have to think about different ways in meeting where the statement meeting kids where they are, but how do we define that? And so knowing what their interests are, knowing where they are, we can then let them, so that they can engage and actually become a part of that, regardless of how rigorous that problem is. We can give them different entry points into that particular, whatever that word problem may be.
Final comment. What can we do as trustees to help you to support this effort?
I think certainly just having a focus on student academic outcomes is helping us and giving us opportunities so that we can even hear from some of our teacher stories and teacher stories that you hear from, that we can communicate out, the more that this becomes a part of what's already available for our teachers, so that it's not more work for them, and yet it's accessible to our students. So we want people to be asking, well, is this happening at my school? Does my child have access to some of this software? Asking students, are you using it? What do you think about it? So we can get feedback so that we can figure out, is this something that's actually helping us move the needle, or is this something that we need to tweak? Is this something, so not just the data that we're going to present, but also the qualitative data of how folks are feeling about it, both from the parent, the student, and the teacher level.
Thank you, Trustee Anderson. Trustees, any other questions? Trustee Liu?
So kind of picking up on that last one, I really appreciated the questions and the responses. So kind of thinking about the experiential, like which students and which campuses. And I really, can I just say before I get to my question, like I really enjoyed this exercise. This was really fun. And it was fun to see how each of the adults responded to this. And so it reminded me, years ago I was a pre-K 3 teacher's assistant. And the lead teacher never wanted the children to play with the sandbox. We had different corners, I know, right? She never wanted, it was like always there, covered. It was the saddest thing. And so on the days when she would get in late, I would let the kids play in the sandbox. And I would clean afterwards, and they would help me, and it was all, it was all good. But I made that connection because I thought, oh my gosh, some adults might see this and think, oh, I know what Jeronimo's going to do. He's going to lose them under the table. And so, so do we know, like, or is that something that y'all are going to be looking at, like which teachers, which campuses, and really how to grow that comfort among the adults? Because it is a loss of control a little bit to have the trust in children and students to do some of this.
Yeah, I think those are things that we specifically look for as we do our walkthroughs. So Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, Dr. Mays takes a whole team out to particular schools. When I do my walks on Tuesdays and Thursdays, these are things that I'll come back and I just went to this school. I didn't see why don't they have what they should have? So that's part of that whole dialogue of, does the school have everything that they need? And it is a change. Like sometimes people go, oh, really, the kids are playing. No, actually, we want kids to enjoy learning, and we want them to think math is playing, that it's okay for learning to be fun, and in fact, we encourage learning to be fun. And so, but when we are using things, like I wasn't taught math this way. I had to actually not be successful as a classroom teacher for me to then say, I have to do something differently because my students aren't getting it. What am I going to do? And so we have to support all the things, and we have phenomenal teachers. Many of these things are created by teachers who are helping us in the creation of this. And so what better way to make these than by the teachers who are in the field helping, and then we've got our curriculum folks in the offices that take what the teachers are providing and then do the heavy lift of creating these types of lessons for them. And yes, it's okay if we lose them. We'll go buy some more. But you're right. We do need to, and it's a process. To answer the question directly, it's a process still.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you for that. And then I was wondering, and I'm sure we have heard about this, but I'm not remembering. So the third bullet under professional learning talks about factastic. Can you tell us a little bit more about, like, what is that training? And, did teachers or staff, did they avail themselves of that? Or what occurred? And then what is the strategy going forward?
So our math team is going to be highly disappointed that I don't know more about the training, but they really, there was a big push to launch right as COVID kind of came onto the scene. So I know that some of that was pushed, but they did offer this training over the summer, and it's similar to just a comprehensive program to help teachers have additional strategies to develop that number sense and fluency, math fluency. And I do just have to say that the team that helped to put this together, they were like, how are you going to give them enough time to play with them before you launch into the, and so just know they're somewhere out there on Facebook cringing that you didn't have enough time to play. But that's,
tell me that when they came to training.
but yeah, so that's just another sort of series of comprehensive professional learning that is available to our teachers to develop these kind of strategies and tools.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Boswell.
Thank you for these. That was super fun. And I'll say, as someone who didn't get to learn math this way, when my kids were in elementary school and I saw that they were doing this, it makes so much sense. And it's really exciting to see, to have a chance to kind of play with it and understand the theory behind it. I saw the logic behind it, but to really have that deep understanding. So thank you guys for showing us the what and explaining the why and the how. Thank you for that. And send us toys anytime you want. We'll play with them and learn. So yeah, it's an invitation. I'm a big fan of science. So if you want to share that, I will be all in. So I have a question related to the bigger gap that we're seeing, the bigger drop that we're seeing in the math scores versus the reading scores. I think because of the virtual learning, I know we've talked about this, and how much you feel that it is because of that lack of hands-on work, that it's just a different kind of learning at those young grade levels.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really, it's too early to tell yet. Everything we're reading and studying is indicating that the best way to accelerate is through ensuring that you've got even more hands-on activity than ever before, because those are the things that become, again, what I'll keep using as an anchor. If I get it, I don't have to remember the rule. Once I've touched something and I moved it and I did something with it, it becomes, there's a connection of synapses in your brain, and it actually becomes a part of your real learning, instead of, oh wait, what am I supposed to do? I'm supposed to cross multiply, or I'm supposed to invert and multiply if I'm dividing fractions. We don't want kids memorizing rules in isolation. We want them understanding the foundation. And so the more we do manipulatives, what we also see is you don't have to do a repetitive. So back in when I was a teacher, the difference, here's the regular math class, and I gave them 10 problems, and I gave the advanced class 20 problems. I really probably only needed to give either one of those groups 3, and I could differentiate where students were based on how they responded. Once I started recognizing that, you actually don't have to stick with the same skill set over an extended period of time. So we've gotten into the habit of like, I'm going to take 6 weeks to teach place value, when in fact, probably don't need to do that for 6 weeks, but I've always done it that way. But if I do more manipulatives, I can begin to accelerate the skill set acquisition. Will we know if that's really what's going to, we're not going to really have an idea until January, and then we'll start to get some snippets of data that will begin to tell us it is in alignment with what the research are telling us across the nation. But we have seen it in individual classrooms, and we've seen teachers, some of the stories that our communications team is highlighting, talk about some of the things. Hey, I started using this, and this is what I saw. When we do our walks, we hear some teachers, particularly the long, more intense walks that Dr. Mays does with that team, they hear more of those stories, and then we start to use those teachers as our exemplars. And then the goal is that we'll start to have quantifiable data that also matches the qualitative data that we're hearing from our teachers, parents, and students.
Thank you for that. I have another question about our virtual learners that we have offered this fall. And as people are coming back, do you expect to see some gaps related to that?
And if so, kind of how are teachers going to be supported to integrate kids as they come back in to help catch up with that?
So I think the challenge is going to be that those are going to be, again, very individualized. We don't want to make any kind of generalized assumptions about some of those students. Some of the students that have been at home may have had a lot of support at home and may in fact even have, we certainly give them the tools, the virtual tools that use things like the Cuisinart rods. And what I do know the team has done is over this week, they were integrating so that kids were able to know which group of students they were going to be rejoining, because clearly the group that they were with in a virtual classroom is different in many, I would say 95% of the classroom settings that they're going to physically be returning to in January. So I know there was a rollout between student leadership, school leadership and human capital to make sure that that was actually a process that was ongoing. I don't know if Dr. Mays wants to add anything to that, or if that answers like we don't know. We did do like map assessment, but we also know, again, the map was given then in a virtual setting, which doesn't give you the same type of reliable and valid data that you get from actually giving it. So the good news, if there, and there is lots of good news, is that in January when they're here is when they'll be taking the mid-year, which will give us, hey, you know what, that means their beginning of year was pretty valid, or not so sure that beginning of year was really valid because the mid-year is showing us something really differently. And so then teachers will be able to embark on how to intervene at that point.
Yes, I'm hearing we don't know and we have a plan, which is great.
Correct.
Thank you. And do you have something to add, Dr. Mays?
No, I was going to pretty much echo the same thing that Dr. Elizalde said. We did have a rollout for students and parents to kind of be onboarded back onto the campus. So similar to an open house that you would have for, regular students. And many of the resources that we use for House Bill 4545 were used to support those students. And Joshua John isn't here, but, similar to what you would see in a traditional school setting, went out there, spoke with parents, spoke with students, provided those supports, but we recognize that the virtual setting wasn't the actual classroom setting. So we'll be doing a lot of stuff to help those students reacclimate to the classroom setting.
Thank you. And then I think, speaking of 4545, that's my last question, is how is 4545 and that support playing into the support that our students need to get back on track and make up that extra gap?
So we've actually been working to accelerate the exposure to those resources. And so I want to say about a month ago, we had a conversation going back and forth because we didn't see the utilization that we wanted to see with those tools. And so we made some tweaks at that time. And so we've seen an uptick in the use of those resources. But coming back in January, we said, hey, this is the end of the semester. Rather than, move forward with a full blast and a full push, let's wait till January when we get back. And we plan on doing, again, a more, robust push to try to let parents and students know more about the availability of the resources that we have. And so as soon as we get back, that's going to be a heavy push.
Okay, thank you. And that is funded now. We have the funding for that, and a lot of that's being offered without requiring extra time of teachers, right? Is that where they are?
Correct. And so we do have, of course, the tutoring available from teachers in the classroom. But what we want to be able to push is the virtual availability of teacher or phone tutoring. Again, we saw an uptick, but we want to promote that even more to take some of the stress off of the teachers, but to also make sure that students recognize that this resource is available to them for help with closing some of those gaps that we see.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Boswell. Trustees, any other questions? Trustee Singh?
Thank you so much. Once again, I feel smarter having had this discussion, and the quality of these reports is just really exceptional. So thank you to the staff for putting this together. I just wanted, and you guys have seen this, but just, it's interesting to see some of the repeated patterns that we saw last month, where we have white economically disadvantaged students are outperforming African American and a Hispanic, and special ed and emergent bilingual, non-economically disadvantaged students. So it's so helpful to see the data separated like this, so we can better track how our kiddos are doing. I'm going to ask the question that I always ask, which is, what are some of the, have there been any campuses that you feel have been outliers in a positive way, like that kind of stood out, and what would you maybe attribute that to?
Yeah, at this point, I've told our team, we're like really cautious right now because the data are so preliminary. So I don't want to highlight something that may not yet be the right signal that we're actually, that this really is doing really well. And conversely, we also don't want to overinterpret, again, so early on. I know that it seems like a really long time, but our teachers have had students back in their classroom really for September, October, November, like less than 4 full months from the majority of them not having been in school all of last year. So we really think it's important not to, I think in January, when we start to see that mid-year, we're going to be more confident in telling you, hey, we think there's some real positive things happening here, and we'll be utilizing those as exemplars. And I know we have them. We're just very, right now, cautiously, like, I have to do that. I'm not sure yet.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Okay. Well,
As much as I want to be able to give you an answer,
no,
but
I
it's
just
like,
wanted to ask to see if there was anything that you had noticed. The other question I had, I was really glad to hear you talk a little bit about how you were going to sort of check in and see, I think you've identified a clear problem or challenge for our teachers is the lack of time, and I so appreciate that you use those words because and the intervention or the thing that you're developing is something that would help address that, because I think our teachers do know conceptually, like this is what good teaching is supposed to look like. They all have been trained, and have been certified. I remember when I went through my teacher certification, yes, we learned this, but the problem is implementation is a whole different thing, and it is very time consuming to put things together. So, I do hope that this will help, and it will be interesting to kind of, as we move through the school year, to see what kind of feedback you're getting from teachers. Is this actually, I would be interested to know what percentage of our teachers are using these lessons and the resources. But I see a lot of potential here from an equity perspective, because you said these are available at all of our campuses, these are, and I like the fact that people are all going to have access to high quality lessons. I mean, that is setting up a system, which is, I think, a big strength. So that you're bringing to our school district. So thank you so much for that. So I just wanted to, and as we move forward with these reports, I again would just want to mention that I would be interested in hearing some more information on how staffing plays a role in this. So maybe once we do get our middle of year scores and we see the outliers or, students, campuses that are maybe performing differently than you would have expected, I would be curious to see, well, do they have a math teacher at every grade level? Maybe that was the missing link, or maybe they didn't have enough special education teachers, or, whatever. So some of those more HR types of issues and the actual staffing issues would be really helpful to see. But thank you all so much for sharing this. Really appreciate the effort.
Trustees, any other questions? Dr. Sal, I just have one, just to confirm for the community that the data will, as we progress, will be shared with the trustees, disaggregated in all kinds of different ways, including race.
Yes, sir. The sample that is before you is the one that we've now used for, I believe, the 3rd time. And in each of those times, you see that the table on page 2 will continue to be disaggregated by race, ethnicity, and special populations of students, including emergent bilingual and special education.
Thank you. Trustees, any other questions? If not, I really appreciate you all's questions, and thank you, Dr. Elizalde, and your team for answering those questions. As part of our commitment to monitoring, the last question is to ask trustees if they accept the report presented tonight, and if not, to ask if this is still the right strategy for the district. So trustees, if you would, please raise your right hand if you're ready to accept tonight's report. So everyone raised their hands, so I want to thank the trustees for taking part in this shared commitment to students and student outcomes. Now, for the public's information, if a trustee had not, then I would call on them to briefly share their feedback and then invite Dr. Lizalde for any comments. And then we would share with the trustees that we would take that feedback back with us to continue the discussion on the scorecard and our new process. And then we would move on to the next item. So just to make sure that the public understands what that process is like. We're now going to move on to the public testimony for items on consent agenda, on the consent agenda and items for separate vote. And members of the public wishing to participate in the public testimony portion of our meeting were called the dedicated AISD phone line in advance of the meeting to sign up to speak in person or to audio record their remarks. And tonight, we have one person signed up to speak, and we have with a recorded message, and so we'll now play that recorded message for public testimony. So please listen carefully.
Greetings, trustees and superintendent. My name is Stacy Smith. I'm an educator in an elementary school in AISD in East Austin. And I'm also a parent. I'm calling about agenda item 11.1, the superintendent's scorecard, specifically reduction in referrals. While I agree with this policy and the intent behind it, I agree with the intent behind the pre-K through 2 suspension ban. My question is, how are we doing on that, and how are the children? Are the children intended to benefit from the pre-K through 2 suspension ban actually learning more? And are the children in the classes of students that are disruptive, causing significant disruptions and loss of learning benefiting from this policy? Do we have data? Are we tracking kids? What's going on with that? Because I think we know that there is some significant disruption and destruction and loss of learning happening right now. And teachers and educators feel as if we are not being supported, and we're just really not sure what to do anymore. So can we get some data on what's happening, and are children learning, and are they having better outcomes because of policies like this? How is the Learning Support Center being supported on a campus? Can we have a discussion about what an on-campus Learning Support Center looks like? I think that's all I have time for. Thank you so much.
So trustees, this concludes public testimony. Are there any questions or clarifications? Trustee Liu?
Do we have it on the calendar when we'll receive information about discipline rates, and when is that?
I know we are planning to bring a report on discipline or providing it to you. I don't want to say offhand when we have it, but we can be done in either or both. So we'll absolutely, and we'll do a follow-up specifically to the particular campus. I did receive some additional information, so Dr. Mays is already working on what the specifics are with regard to what kinds of supports, and then we'll look to see where are there some data that are telling us there's some additional places where there's something that may not quite be the way we need to be supporting both our students and our teachers.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And we sure, if it's not already, I'm sure it's on our list for discussion with all.
We're going to make sure that
Yeah.
we provide that.
Thank you. Trustee Boswell?
And I would love to know more about the on-campus learning support centers, kind of what is offered and what the strategies are, and whether those are fully staffed and how we can better support that.
Thank you. Trustees, any other questions? So if not, as a reminder, please feel free to share any general comments or questions on non-voting items with the board by email at trustees@austinisd.org. We will now move to the consent agenda. And trustees, are there any consent items anyone would like to pull for a separate vote? So hearing none, Secretary Singh, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Sure. I move that we approve consent agenda items 12 point, wait, let me make sure. Sorry, I already messed up. 9.1, 10.1 to 10.2, 11.1 to 11.4, 12.1 through 12.6, 13.1 through 13.5, 14.1 through 14.3, and 15.1 and 15.2.
Trustee Singh, just for clarification, I think
Did I miss one?
9.1 is the motion to approve the consent agenda. The consent agenda. I'm speaking of 10.1.
Thank you. Okay, subtract that one.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So is there a sorry, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. So trustees, is there any discussion on any of these consent items? Trustee Boswell.
I'd like to make a comment about some of the public input that we received about the scorecard and specifically goal number 5, the CCMR, the readiness scorecard, and then post-secondary. I just want to express real gratitude. I'm excited to have something on our scorecard that I think we've all worked really hard to come to a consensus on. And I really appreciate the input from groups in our community who are reaching out, really endorsing the ambition of it and the idea that our district, our students, and our community really are capable of keeping that promise of being prepared for college, career, and life, and really offering their support and their push to really be brave and bold about this. And I think this is a really fantastic step, and I just want to express that gratitude for people who are pushing us to do even more, and am excited to take these steps toward that. So, and really want to thank the administration for going there with us, Dr. Elizalde and everyone with you for leaping into that with us. So thank you.
Thank you. And a great example of focusing on support, trying to support solutions instead of focusing on the problem or personalizing it as well. I think we're trying to model that kind of behavior and expectation. So I really appreciate you bringing that up. Trustee Boswell. Trustee Singh.
I just want to really kind of echo what Trustee Boswell said. I don't think, we got to this point because our board really stuck it out, and because our administration was very willing to just go there. And what I love about this scorecard really is that we are focusing on the student groups that were kind of hidden before, when you looked at the aggregates. Prior to this scorecard, our goals were typically looking at averages across the whole district and really ignoring the groups that had the most need. And that's a problem, obviously, because it doesn't allow us to provide resources and close opportunity gaps. And that is, in my belief, the only reason we have outcome gaps is because of opportunity gaps. And so I'm so excited to see what happens next. Regarding goal 5, I really appreciate, again, that we have not only focused on economically disadvantaged students, but also shifted the focus from post-secondary readiness to post-secondary attainment, which means we are actually going to be measuring the percentage of economically disadvantaged students who either enroll in college directly from high school or earn an associate's degree in one of our many wonderful early college high schools, or get an industry certification. And I mean, right now our baseline, I think, is 29%. And I think our goal is to get, it's TBD, but I feel like it's going to be much higher than 29%. So super excited about that. And I do want to just give a quick shout out to some folks who have also been interested in seeing a a separate direct-to-college goal progress monitor. I think that it's going to get on the scorecard eventually, maybe not quite yet, because I think there's some groundwork that, we've got to lay down here, but I do feel really optimistic that we're going to get where we want to be so that all of our students get the opportunities they deserve. So thank you, Dr. Elizalde, and to the whole staff.
Trustees, any other comments? I just note one other thing. This is on the consent agenda item, and I just want to note that what you have up in the dais is 10 very shy people who don't have any opinions at all about this. And I'm being facetious for a second, because I think the fact that we have strong opinions about where we want student outcomes to go and the high expectations is really modeling the kind of strategic framework and the mission and vision and values that this board supports. And we'll see where it goes, and we're in for a ride, but I think it's the right direction and the right to be on. So with that, I'm having a motion by Secretary Singh and a second by Trustee Anderson to approve consent agenda items 10.1 to 10.2, 11.1 to 11.4, 12.1 to 12.6, 13.1 to 13.5, 14.1 to 14.3, and 15.1 to 15.2. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. And the motion carries by all those on the dais. So we're going to move to the item for abstention of votes, which is a separate vote. And we have one item. Well, actually, we're going to move to the for the separate vote. We have one item. Trustee Singh, do we have a motion to approve item 16.1?
Yes, I move that we approve item 16.1, the school year 22-23 and 23-24 district calendar change.
Is there a second?
Second.
Trustees, is there any discussion on this particular item? Trustee Singh?
Yeah, I wanted to get a little bit of feedback from the administration on can you just share a little bit about the specific changes to this calendar versus what we had currently adopted, and also what the survey results showed?
I'll start with while you grab it. The selection that we're presenting to you today was giving an approximation, but it was like a 2-to-1. It's 65% to 35% for the particular calendar. So it wasn't, sometimes you get that 49-51. This one was 65% to 35% with the item that we're presenting. And I know that some of the items that were of particular attention that on this particular calendar, different from what's in place right now, started off with ensuring that teachers had more planning time at the beginning of the school year, and the corresponding adjustments then that needed to be made, because you still have to have the number of days, of course, for both the teacher contract as well as the number of minutes for instruction. So then the concern regarding October being a long period of time where teachers don't have a break between the beginning of the year, and that month in particular, we had basically provided two different options. One was to use some Fridays that were also connected with where we have a big struggle in finding substitutes on the Friday of ACL. And the other one was to put one being half day instead of a complete holiday, and the other one being a professional learning exchange day, as well as the last 2 days prior to the end of the school year in this coming year for the 22-23 school year, because of the way Christmas or the Christmas break falls, the winter break Christmas falls on, gives teachers that week goes all the way to the 23rd. So we heard a lot of concern around the 22nd and the 23rd of that week. So Leslie and the team then made some adjustments with that feedback and turned those into professional learning exchange days, meaning if you do your professional learning at any other given time, you actually then don't have to work on the 22nd and the 23rd. And our teachers are already engaging in a lot of professional learning. So that seems like something, which is why I think it got such a high percentage of 65% versus the original one, where we actually had folks coming up to that date. So that was one of the significant, I think those are 3 items in particular that I recall that we made changes of. What did I mess up?
So the difference between the one we currently have and the one we're looking at this evening is we start on the 15th, on the one that we've brought you this evening, and on the previous one, it's August 17th. So it's a 2-day difference in terms of the first day of school. Both of them have the Labor Day holiday in September. Then we have parent conferences spread the last week of September, and that was a slight change because we asked principals when would be the best time to do parent conferences, and they selected that period of time so that those conferences could be held before report cards went out for the first 9 weeks. We did add the differences in October, one being a half day and the other one being a professional development day for those 2, just to help us and assist us with the substitute issues. So that is different than the current one that we have. The other big change is the fall break at Thanksgiving remained the same. The end of the first semester is different, is that we were out December 19th for the exchange days for next year, versus on this new calendar, we have them the 21st and 22nd. And the difference is we come back later. So some of the things that we looked at is the fact that when you come upon this time of year, there's hustle and bustle, whether there are certain things you do in your families to get ready for the holiday season. And so they do those, but they're gonna get ready for their holiday season either way. But then you have family come in, or you're going somewhere, and then you have New Year's Eve and all of that associated with it. And this year we come back, I believe it's like January 4th. In next year's, the one we're proposing to you, is that break extends the other way. And one of the things that we keep hearing is that people truly need a break. And so by putting the break after all of the hustle and bustle, they truly then don't have like family obligations or all of those kind of things, and they can actually take a break. And when they come back a little bit later in January, a week later, they will actually feel rested. And I have actually worked in school districts before where that switch occurred, and people were a whole lot happier walking back in January when they felt like they actually truly got a rest, because it was also a rest from the holidays. And so that is a change from the current one to the one that we're proposing. And then after that, it is pretty similar all the way through. The one addition that we did on the new calendar is we added in the Cesar Chavez Dolores Huerta holiday. That's a new holiday added in on the one that we're proposing this evening. So spring break is at the same time. The other thing, and I must spoke a little bit, we did add in a little bit of a change in February, because that's the other month. Even though it's the shortest month, it feels like the longest month when you're teaching. And so we did add a break in there. So we tried to look at the school calendar, do some strategic breaks, and then try to alleviate some of the strain in terms of our substitutes and work a calendar that we thought that would better suit some of that up and down feeling that we're feeling. Survey results. We had 12,025 people view our calendars online. We had 10,905 who actually provided their preference to us. That breakdown is about 52% of families, 33% were teachers, 13% were non-teaching staff, and 2% were students. Of that, 65% preferred calendar B. So what we did was we lifted calendar B and mirrored it for 23, 24, and then that's what we submitted on Monday for the document for this evening. So those were the results of the survey. And, you know, the comments ranged. A lot of them were around, you know, there were some around the start of school, some around the holiday break. Some were glad that we added the Cesar Chavez Dolores Huerta Day in. Some liked the break in October, some didn't. Like for anything that we did on the calendar, you had some that were like, this is great. Others are like, oh, it's okay. Some, no, I don't like this. So it ranged among those on the survey results.
And then I'm sorry, can I continue or did someone else? Okay.
With questions on this particular?
Yes. And so with this calendar, if we adopt it, is that the only way we can do the early release on Wednesdays? Or if we had stuck with our original calendar, would we have been able to do the early release Wednesdays with that?
So as things are broken down, there's all of these things are interrelated, but they're all independent of each other. So this calendar is what we put out there to say, here are the days that students will come to school, those kind of pieces. When are our holidays that? What we do next is then we will look at, like, we have to make sure that we have the 75,600 instructional minutes. So we work on those, you know, start time, end time. So no, you then go back and you do your 75,600 minutes, but you can do your start and end times that within that. And then you go down to the daily schedule and it just kind of like works its way down. But no, they're independent of each other. So you can do that with even the current one.
So it seems like a really simple task.
One would think.
Then the last question I have is, so the survey offered two different new options for the calendar, but it didn't offer the original
Right, we didn't go back to
option.
the original one.
So people were really voting between the two new alternatives and not, okay.
Yes.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, trustees. Any other questions? Okay, so having a motion by Secretary Singh and a second by Trustee Zapata to approve agenda item 16.1, all those in favor, please raise your right hand. Six. All those opposed? All those abstaining? Okay, so the motion passes 6 in favor, 0 opposed, and 2 abstaining. So we're now going to move to the item for abstention for a separate vote. And we have one item, and Trustee Singh, do you have a motion to approve item 17.1?
Yes, I move that we approve item 17.1.
Is there a second?
Second.
Trustees, is there any discussion on this item? Any questions? Bless you. Having a motion by Secretary Singh and a second by Trustee Anderson to approve agenda item 17.1, approval of a license agreement and a neighborhood cost participation agreement with the City of Austin to enable the construction of a schoolyard stage at Blackshear Elementary School. I think right there. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. And the motion passes by all those on the dais. So we will now recess the open meeting at 8:12 p.m. and move to executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code sections 551.074, 551.072, 551.073, 551.087, 551.076, and 551.071. For our viewers at home, this concludes our live broadcast. When we're finished with the executive session, we will briefly return to open session to formally adjourn the meeting, and the adjournment will be recorded and be included in all replays of tonight's meeting. And again, thank you all for joining us, and have a good evening and a good holiday break. Good evening. We will now reconvene the open meeting at 9:42 p.m. And do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved. No, you need.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Having a motion by trustee Ashe and a second by trustee Anderson to adjourn, all those in favor, please raise your right hand. And the motion passes by all those on the dais. This meeting is now adjourned at 9:43 p.m. Thank you again and have a great holiday.